welcome to the next episode of Back to Basics. And in this episode I'm going to be showing you how to make a simple Nurgle Swamp base. Now I've tried to make this base as quick as possible to make, and with that in mind it's actually a no paint base. So all you need to do is prime your base, and then everything else we do will just be attaching things to it. So it's a really quick base to make. And you could probably knock out quite a few of these all at once, which will make basing your armies much easier. So let's head to the table and I will see you in a bit. So as I said, this is essentially a no paint base. You can make this entire base without using any paint or a paintbrush. But what I've done, just to show you what you can do, is I've attached a tiny skull to this. So I've attached the skull, then I've primed it in grey, and then I've just painted my skull up in some Morghast bone. Now I would recommend priming your base, no matter whether you're going to add anything to it or not, just so you've got this nice painted surface on which to add our textures. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a platform, if you like, for the miniature to stand on. And for that, we're going to use Stirland Battlemire from Citadel. I would normally use Vallejo's white pumice and then paint it, but because I wanted to make this a quick base, I've gone straight for the Stirland Battlemire, just because it doesn't need any painting. So I'm going to smush this onto here like this. So that's the rough flat section that our miniature's feet are going to stand on. And now what we want to do is kind of create a rim around the edge for us to add our Nurgle goo. So I'm gonna just start applying this. It isn't the neatest of processes. It can get a bit messy, but that's fine. So I'm going to put this across and round the edges, so that we've got a little pool there. We'll just smush that in. And then let's get some more, and we'll just that there. So what I'm aiming to do here is to make 3 distinct little pool areas in amongst the mud. There we go, that's 2 done. If you get any excess around the edges, just scrape it off. And then let's finish this last little puddle with the skull in it. And a tiny bit more. And it doesn't matter if you do what I've done. If you have put a skull on, if you get this on the skull, it doesn't matter, because, you know, if a skull is in the swamp, it's going to be dirty. It's going to have the mud and sludge on it. So there we go. So that just needs to be left to dry. And then we will come back in a little bit and I'll show you the next step. So that's all dried now, and the other thing I did as well was I just added a wash of Agrax Earthshade to the skull, but as I said, the skull is completely optional. If you want this to be completely paint free, then just miss that bit out. So the next thing we're going to do is going to add some greenery, some swamp tufts. So I've got these ones from Army Painter, and I really like these ones because they're good quality, and on one sheet you get lots of different sizes, which I find really helpful. So I'm just going to take a little one and put it in there. So if you remember from the beginning, this bit across here is where the mini's feet are going to be, on this bigger area here. So we want to avoid putting any of the tufts there. So I'm going to take a slightly bigger one and just put it here. And then I'm going to take one of the really big ones and put it just here. And then one of these to have in front of him, like that. So you can see with this one, I've kind of placed it so that it's kind of half in that pool, and then the others I've just placed on the mud. So then, the final step for this base is to add some of the delightful Nurgle Rot. Now this stuff is absolutely disgusting, but it's effective. So now you can use this as a paint, so you can just apply a coat with a paintbrush, but I find that doing that for this type of base leaves you having to do several coats, because it dries, it shrinks, and it looks really flat. So what I prefer to do is use a pipette, and I'm just gonna fill my pipette up with it, and then I'm just gonna drop it a little bit at a time into these little wells we made for the puddles. I apologise if you can hear a screaming cat in the background, because it is 2 minutes past feeding time and she is not impressed and doesn't believe that I should be in here making YouTube videos when she is wasting away. So I think I'm going to be in bother when I finish this. So yeah, as you can see, I'm just squeezing this into all of these puddly bits. If you have put a skull on, you're going to be kind of half drowning it, and that's absolutely fine. The effect is that you just see a little bit of it left sticking out. Let's put that around there, some around there. Now that bubble's popped, I can squeeze some more into that one. And then also what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit in this little well here. And then I'm just going to dot a few tiny bits onto the muddy areas. And then I'm even just going to gently brush the tips of some of the shrubs as well, to give the effect that everything here is just disgusting. And there you go. That's it. Finished. So this just needs to be left to dry now. So I told you it was nice and easy. But if you want to change things up a little bit, here's a different one that I've worked on. And the only thing I've done differently here is that I've used one of these bases with the lip on, so you don't have to kind of build this rim around the edge. You can just use the natural lip of the base. And I've also added a dry brush to the muddy area there, but that's just an aesthetic thing. You don't need to do that. For this one, that's a pretty effective look, so it's completely up to you whether you want to do any of the extra bits or not. So that's it. That's how I make my simple Nurgle Swamp bases. And as I showed in the video, you can add anything you like to these. I obviously put a skull on mine, but you can add absolutely anything, or you can leave that off completely. This is just to give you an idea of the process of how you create that effect. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel, and that way you'll be notified whenever I release new content. And you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, and the links to that are down in the description below. If you've got any feedback, leave it in the comments and I will get back to you. And I will be back on Saturday with another all about that base video. And until then, happy hobbying.